the Remnants Podcast. This is Rob, and I'm here with first time to the show, Dean.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm just fine, Dean. And we just got back from seeing Ready Player One, and I think we should start with a very brief spoiler-free that I can post by itself.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and then we'll move on to we're gonna compare the book and the movie quite a bit here. I'll just get this right out of the way. I recommend the movie by itself on its own merits. I think it's a lot of fun. It feels like a lot of the old Spielberg, E.T., Stand By Me, all those old Venture, Back to the Future movies that we had as kids, and we really enjoyed. I think it stands by itself. I think it's like Highlander in that way, where you don't need to make a sequel, because if you made a sequel to this movie, it would be like Highlander 2. It would just suck.
Correct.
I really think that it's not like the book. If you're expecting the book, you'll be disappointed. If you're expecting something that's a reinterpretation of the same story, you'll be okay with it. And I can see why some people are putting out reviews saying they don't really like it that much. And I don't think that's really fair. It's going to make money. It's not going to make Infinity War money, but it's going to make money. And I've got my fingers crossed for it. What'd you think? First
Yeah,
impressions?
I think, overall, first off, without a spoiler, it has nothing to do with the book. And it's so far removed from the book that I think I enjoyed it more, because if it tried to be closer to the book, I would have picked it additionally. But because it was so separated and so distinctly different, it made it enjoyable because it was almost like a whole different story, right? The other thing I thought was it really appealed to two different groups, right? So if you like 80s, you're gonna like it because it's got all those nods and all those little references and all those both graphics, which we'll get into the details later, but also a lot of the music and stuff that you'd expect from the content of the book. And then at the same time, the storyline would appeal to, I would say, early teen all the way to adult. So it covers a pretty wide gamut as far as what people would like. The other thing I really enjoyed about it is it's Spielberg, and the guy is still an incredible filmmaker. And the movie it goes from sequence to sequence to sequence, and there's really not that downtime. Even though it's a fairly long movie, it doesn't feel like it because it travels so fast. So
it is really quickly paced. If I wouldn't say a complaint, but a warning, it's very condensed. Because if you've read the book could be like Lord of the Rings. Like it's not that intense, but it could be at least The Hobbit. Like it's
Sure.
that long. It's got that much meat going on, and this certainly condensed that into one film. And at first, I was sitting there griping. I'm like, it's got to be a sequel. They got to be doing what they did with Back to the Future and filming at the same time, and that's why they got the crystal key in the trailer.
All right, right.
I'm rationalizing like crazy, and I will say it doesn't lean itself to a sequel. Only if Klein writes another book. That's the only way it's going to become a sequel.
Yeah, I don't see a sequel in there. And when we get into the nitpicky part, we get away from this, no spoilers, I think we'll talk about why they condense it to one. But I really, like I said, I would recommend you go see it. I think you would enjoy it. And then as long as you're not expecting it to be the book, you'll be fine.
I agree. I think it's I recommend it in 3D. It's not necessary.
No.
But especially, I'm more into 3D than you are, but I liked it in 3D because of the keys and everything else, and the challenges some of them are very different than the book, so don't be expecting certain things, because there's certain things from the book I was like, ooh, I can't wait to see that, and it wasn't there. But we'll get to that later. I definitely recommend. We do this thing like how many shots out of 4 would you give it, and 5 being the perfect film, which there are very few that landed. I say maybe like Alien is 5 or The Shining is 5, and we'll get to why I mentioned that later. What would you give that out of 4 shots? What would you give
out
that?
of 4 shots? It's a solid 3.
Solid 3.
Yeah, it's not Star Wars, but
No.
it's a movie worth going to see.
Yeah. I'd say in the recent months, it's my third favorite, starting with Thor, Ragnarok,
Oh,
and
that
then
was
moving
good.
forward.
Yeah.
Thor was great. Last Jedi I loved. And I think this falls into that third category for me of movies that I love. And that's nothing against Black Panther. Black Panther was outstanding, but it didn't give me the hair-raising moment I looked for. And this one gave me a couple. This one gave me a few feels. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm 10 again. Okay, well, that's it for the spoiler-free. We'll just post that up real quick in 5 minutes, and I'll just link it to the rest of this. But we'll move on to spoilers. And I'm not kidding. Spoilers. I think we should talk about the movie on its own at first.
Sure.
Its own merit, and then we'll start comparing to the book, because we could get really deep into that. As far as the movie by itself, like I said before, it felt like Goonies, it felt like E.T., it felt like Back to the Future, and all those wonderful films. And I'm a film freak, and I think I've said this to you. There's 5 box sets I must own.
Sure.
Star Wars, Star Trek, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, Aliens. Those are my top 5 franchises. And this touches all of those. And in fact, there were alien references in there wasn't expecting.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, that was so great. So I'll just basically, before getting into the differences, it starts out with Wade, as it does in the book, in the stacks. He's in Columbus instead of in Texas, I think is where he was in the book. Not that it really mattered.
Yeah, but it cuts a whole storyline.
Yeah.
Get there eventually. We'll just talk about the movie first.
Yeah, so he's in the stacks. He's a poor kid. Everybody knows how this starts out. He's in this virtual reality that I think is definitely in the future. I think it's something that's going to occur. His meeting, the whole thing is predicated on this designer, this web designer, or rather, game designer.
Correct.
Sorry, that has created this whole virtual reality world, like Xbox Infinity, but like Infinity. Like
right.
It's actually almost realistic. I heard some people complaining that the characterizations looked fake. Well, of course they looked fake. They are supposed to.
Correct. You're supposed to be whoever you want, and they poke fun of that in the movie too, right?
Yep, they do.
But I think the big thing too that is touching on almost the reality we're at now. If you take what kids are doing now with their cell phones and their apps and surfing the web, or even like World of Warcraft, classic example, right, where you can get immersed in the reality that they have. If you add that to a virtual reality rig, you start putting on the glasses and all that type of stuff, and then of course in the movie they've got gloves and suits and the whole works.
They call them haptic rigs, I think.
Correct. I really think it could be a reality here. Now I don't know. Hopefully, society doesn't get to the point where we live in that, like they imply in the movie. But I think we're not too far away. The movie's 2045.
I think so. Yeah. He was born in 2027 or something like that.
Correct. So you're probably looking at you're going to get there in reality a little bit quicker than what they're thinking. I don't think we're that far away, but hopefully it's not quite as immersion. And then of course the Oasis that they're talking about in the movie, that's the virtual reality, is supposed to be the only one.
Yeah.
It has no competition. It's so inclusive that everybody's in it. And there's several points in the movie where you see even walking down the street, they're walking around this virtual reality if they happen to leave their house. And they make fun of it where they've got people doing a pole dance that shouldn't be doing a pole dance.
The old lady that's boxing.
Right. Somebody standing on a surfboard that's pretending like they're surfing on the ocean,
but they're literally standing on a girder.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Exactly. So you get all those little funny things that play to you can have any reality you want, and they can play it up. And I think getting into the filming just for a moment, but it's black and white and very dark when they're in reality, and then they go into the virtual world and everything's bright and vibrant, and
very monochrome in reality.
Absolutely. And of course in the virtual world, it's not only that they're virtual characters, but their hair is flowing and blowing in the wind and all that kind of stuff, just like a crazy Japanese anime.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely had a lot of anime influences. Everyone saw from the trailer that the bike from Akira is in there, which really
jeez.
I was pleased to see that. I was pleased to see that it was Artemis that was driving it. I didn't expect that from the trailer necessarily. I think that they did a really good job of, if they were going to condense it, and again we'll get to details, if they're going to condense it, they put it together. Only in a couple spots did it lose me in terms of it's moving too fast. And I think, but then I had to remind myself, this kid is how old? 15?
Sure. Well, I think 16, he's 17 in the
17?
book. Yeah.
I was stupid. I get it. I could see falling in love with that girl in the virtual reality the way it is. I could definitely see the colors that are very enticing. Let's talk about the opening game. They just kind of jump right into it.
Sure.
And they don't really waste a lot of time, which of course they have to, because it kind of slows down a little bit in the middle, so they kind of have to get that real pop in the beginning. And that race that everybody saw in the trailer, everyone's like, what the fuck is this? It was actually great. I really had a good time with it. H had the Bigfoot, and he had the DeLorean, and she had the Akira bike, and you saw all these other Kit and all these other Airwolf and all this crazy stuff in the screen. It's definitely a multi-view film. Like, you're going to have to watch it several times just to catch every reference.
Oh yeah, there was tons of stuff in there. And in fact, obviously there's a DeLorean, there's a Akira racer. H is driving the big old 4x4 thing.
Bigfoot.
Yeah,
Bigfoot. Yep.
There was Godzilla in that not Godzilla, but King Kong.
King Kong and the T-Rex from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, and the T-Rex. And then it was an intro scene. So I think in the preview I anticipated that would be like the finale.
Yeah.
So by making it the intro scene, I think they really grabbed you and dragged you right into the movie right away. And they skipped a lot of the backstory that you would have expected from the books, which I think is part of why we think it moves so fast, because the books much longer. It could have been a trilogy.
Oh, definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you lop off a third of the book, it makes it fairly easy to make it shorter. But that scene, and even the result of how they win the race, to get to the first key, which is what the race is about, was
Yeah.
was pretty impressive. So
Well, it makes sense from a video game point of view. The hidden door. It
Absolutely.
leads right back to the end, frankly, but we'll get there a little later. But everybody knows that adventure is a big part of the story. And that's kind of the same thing. To get the Easter egg in adventure, you do it at the beginning. You go the wrong way at the beginning, and that's exactly how he got to. Now, was that park a reference? Once he got past King Kong, because he basically went backwards and a door opened, kind of like that door on Tomorrowland when it just drops
Right.
you into a different world. And then he runs in reverse the entire way, but ends up going the same direction as everybody else, even though he turned the other way.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre. Then I had to remind myself, oh, right, it's in a computer. Of course he can do that. So he's following everybody. He's seeing everybody above his head, which is astounding by itself. It reminded me of that big archway in Vegas that you walk
Right.
under. This crazy stuff going on. He sees it all playing out. He sees King Kong come out, and then sure enough, he goes right past him. Now the park, for some reason, gets that finish line in the archway and the fountain. It looked familiar to me, but I couldn't figure out why.
yeah, I can't place the park.
I mean, it looked like Central Park, obviously, in fall. Maybe that's a reference right there, Central Park in fall. But, Harry Met Sally or something. I mean, it kind of reminded me of that for some reason. Maybe that's something I'll dig deeper and try to find.
The internet will probably tell you, right?
I'm sure. I'm going to avoid looking things up while we're talking because I just want to give our first impressions out.
Well, I do. In the reverse scene too, if it was Matrixy, right?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden he's seeing the computer how the system is made, and he's looking through things, and he's from the back end of the program instead of from
I was
the
thinking
front.
Tron.
What? Yeah, Tron would
Yeah.
be the same, similar, right?
Yeah.
So it was a nod to all those movies with the way they did that. The virtual world from the backside of the virtual world, which is actually more animated than the world that you're seeing. That's kind of realistic.
Yeah. Like you're seeing behind the curtain, but it's still cool.
Yeah.
Like somehow. Yeah, I could see that.
Underneath the roller coaster at Disneyland kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Well, like when they turn the lights on at the Haunted Mansion. You're
Oh
like,
yeah,
okay,
it is. Yeah, ruin the fantasy.
Ruin the fantasy a little bit. But he gets past Kong. He ends up doing this awesome drift slide around. We all saw on the trailer,
Yeah.
the DeLorean. And I gotta tell you, I love the DeLorean so much. I was debating. There's not a lot of merchandise out for this movie right now. There really isn't. There's like one action figure set
Right.
that has the three primaries and IROC, which I thought was weird. Now that I've seen the movie, I get it. But at the time, I was like, why is IROC in there? But now I kind of understand why. And I want to get those, but I was hesitant. I was like, maybe the movie will suck, and I'll regret getting them. Now I'm definitely going to get them because I'm going to get a DeLorean
Sure.
because they have those replicas that are like 1/24 scale. That's about the same size as a 3/4 inch action figure.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to get him and put him in the DeLorean. I'm like, I'd rather have him in there than Michael J. Fox at this point. But and I wish I could have gotten the poster. They put out these posters, and did you see those?
The posters?
The posters, not just the poster for the film itself, but in Hollywood they put out all these remake posters. They're all like Lost Boys, Breakfast Club.
the bedroom, the ones from the bedroom, or
I don't know about the bedroom, but I'm talking about like us, like
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah,
reality.
yeah.
They advertised and they took the main characters and put them into all these iconic posters, and one of them is the Back to the Future poster.
Oh,
It's
nice.
Parzival posing just like Marty McFly in the flaming DeLorean. It's an exact replica, but instead of Back to the Future, it says Ready Player One at the top.
huh?
And they haven't merchandised them yet. They were just out for marketing, and I'm hoping they do because I'm actually going to replace that Back to the Future one I have in my room next door,
Right.
which is an amalgamation of this film, by the way.
Yeah.
And then flip it around and then put Parzival on the other side and see if anybody notices. Like, wait a minute, that isn't right. But I really got a big kick out of it. Alan Silvestri, of course, did the score for this. I'm a film score freak. Like,
Sure.
I've got on my phone Batman and Jurassic Park and Indiana Jones, and that's the stuff I listen to. I don't even listen to music anymore. It's like 80s and scores. That's it. And I'm totally buying this because obviously Silvestri did Back to the Future and is very reminiscent of Back to the Future. There's a lot of tones in there that are from Back to the Future.
Right.
And it felt like Back to the Future. They even have a reference to Zemeckis in there with the Rubik's Cube, the Zemeckis Cube that turns time back 60
seconds. Yeah.
which is awesome, but we'll get there in a second. So he gets the first key. They kind of gloss over Artemis getting the next key, but she saw him back up, and he even said that. He's like, oh yeah, she saw me hit reverse, and then of course he told H.
Well, yeah, they actually showed her watching him being in reverse, right?
that's
As a cutscene.
And then he
said
it
gave
later.
H the hint, and then H, of course, told the Japanese brothers, right?
Oh.
And so they were,
Daito and Sho.
yeah, so they were able to get it. And so that's the first 5, and of course the contest is different than the book.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they go through that one really quick. Once they get the race and we get the hint, they go through it really quick. They don't even
first
talk
10
about the Sixers going to get it.
No.
But obviously they do after that. And then but the wizard I thought was pretty cool, right? So everybody
Anorak,
else,
yeah.
Anorak was very much D&D like,
Oh yeah.
right?
Which is what he's based on.
And well done. Where everybody else was really cartoony
Mhm.
in Japanese animation, I thought Anorak was a very well done character. And the other one, which we'll talk about later, is probably Irok, right?
Oh yeah. The IROC characterization is totally different.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. I think the Anorak thing was a good call. I think that he was real kind of Gandalf-ish, but kind of more like a Merlin, like not really fitting in. Gandalf kind of has things going on, like he's got things figured out. But Merlin kind of stumbled around, like he in some characterizations of him. He's kind of like that. And he was just he was like his character. I don't remember the actor's name. I feel bad, but the guy who played Morrow, not Ogden, but that's Simon Pegg, but the other guy,
Right.
he played him very well. Take Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and throw in the most awkward OCD person like a monkish kind of guy,
Sure.
and then blend them all together, and that's him. And he was a perfect characterization. The actor did such a good job with that. I think that the character, we'll get to Morrow in a little bit. I think Morrow was missing some stuff, and I think they underutilized Simon Pegg.
Oh, sure.
Which is unfortunate, but anyway, he gets the first key. It's the copper key, and the riddles were different too.
They were not even not even related to the book,
No.
which again made me like the movie more because I once I understood that it wasn't going to be the book, I was more accepting of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was totally different riddles, and they didn't really let the audience figure out the riddle. They almost were telling you the riddle as they were giving you the answer, so it wasn't like you could sit there and puzzle it for yourself for a little bit.
I'll admit, you didn't have to think in this movie.
No,
This is a no-brainer, this movie, and that's fine. I like those kind of movies. I grew up with those kind of movies.
Sure.
But I also grew up with the thinkers, too, so I was appreciated that a lot. But yeah, the riddles, they solve them for you. There's no playing Batman and trying to figure out the riddle with them. No, they just tell you right off the bat what's going on. And they don't waste a lot of time in figuring that out. And in fact, I didn't even remember what the riddles were because they're pointless. Like, there's no reason to even remember them, really.
No, and of course, they don't even really tell you the first riddle.
No,
They basically say that somebody figured out that the first mission is the race, and
Yeah.
that's what the movie jumps right into.
Yeah, they skip an entire step.
Yeah.
Well, they actually skip a few steps, but we'll get to that again later.
Yep.
So they move on. Parsifal figures out that it has something to do with, first he figures out the backward thing. Obviously, we mentioned that. He goes instead of the Anorak's Almanac, or whatever it's called in the book, it's the journals of something. Like it's some big museum where all his memories, are kept.
In like video screen type rooms,
Yeah,
so
like-
you could go watch a video version of the room. So it's essentially a
like a
huge
holodeck
museum.
kind of
Yeah,
thing.
multi-story museum.
Yeah.
You go up to the curator, you tell him what scene you're looking for. You go watch whatever holodeck scene that you're
And the
expecting.
curator's a total smartass.
Oh yeah, the curator's great. You go watch whatever scene that you're expecting to see, and then of course that gives you all the hints for the thing, much like the Almanac does in the book. I actually enjoyed the museum. I thought that was a cool nod, and it was probably better in the book in a way because
Visually, yeah.
yeah, and even just kind of the thought. Now, of course, with the Almanac, it's not with the way the movie did it, everybody sees what you're doing. So it's not private, and so it's a little bit more intrusive as far as being able to go in there.
Well, they kind of get past that by saying that when he first died,
It was packed.
it was packed, and then suddenly people gave up, and then that's why he's kind of in there by himself. And that's why
Correct.
when he walks in, the curator's like, "What do you want now?"
Yeah.
And of course, I'd say the curator's he's not a real character. He's technically supposed to be an NPC,
Correct.
And he's a robot, so he's kind of got this weird half human, kind of like the robot in Passengers. He's kind of got this weird, almost human but not quite quality to him, which of course pays off later. But he finds the memory. He finds out that he was in love with Kira. I can't believe I can't remember the designer's name. What's the designer's name again? I remember Ogden, but who's the other one?
Morrow?
Morrow. I always forget.
Yeah.
I always get that mixed up. But he found out Morrow was in love with Kira, and Morrow made that. But this is after he figured out to go backwards, and he figured out Kira was the key. But it kind of leads him in the right path, but kind of doesn't lead him where he thinks he's going to go. As far as the second, now
With a step not taken,
the step not taken.
and
but-
yeah.
Here's where it really goes off the rails, but in a wonderful way. They all get together. They kind of recreated the basement, H's basement,
Correct.
And
the chat room in the book, yeah.
the chat room in the book, which of course I love that basement because obviously look next door, it's
Right.
it's my basement. And so, but they kind of recreate it. And I should say this: H is a big hulking kind of orcish cyborg kind of character, which of course we see in the trailer. And he's got, instead of only his basement, he's got a huge garage where he basically builds, quote unquote, programs mechs and machines and repairs vehicles, and he's got a big half-created iron giant hanging there. And rather than say, "Oh, that's easy to find," it kind of sets up in the movie that things are hard to come by. Like, you can't just say, "I want a Millennium Falcon." Pop, there it is. No, you either have to buy it or create it.
Right.
And that means you have to be a programmer or rich.
Right.
Which I think is a good stopgap to make things just totally pop. Oh, like, well, I'll take Millennium Falcon. Sure, that's great. And because he even says that, it's like, you can have the Millennium Falcon if you want it. And he's like, you have that?
Well, in the very first scene before the first scene, right?
Yeah.
So they're actually trying to get an artifact. H is in the world doing full-on combat, killing everybody, trying to get an artifact of whatever it was. Oh, it was the glove or whatever that turns you into. Yeah.
Right.
So
it's any mech you want for a period of time. They basically take the Ultraman idea and make it into any robot you want to do.
Correct. Yeah. And then, the cool thing too is H's income in the movie is H repairs things or builds things. So that Iron Man's supposed to be he was paid to do it or paid to make it.
It was a commission, he said.
Correct.
Somebody asked him to, and they never do pay that off. Like, they use it later, but they never do say who.
No, yeah,
it could have been Og. I mean,
oh jeez, who knows? Yeah, no.
It makes you think. But anyway, at any rate, so why don't you go ahead and hit up the next what happened? The really cool part that both you and I were like, oh, this is gonna be awesome, because that's when they go to the movies. When he figures out he went on the first date, and with Kira.
Well, there's a dance scene first, right?
There's the bar. Is that the bar came first? Did the bar come first and then the?
No. So he talks about the leap not taken, right?
Right.
And so the first thing they do is they go to the dance club.
Okay, that's right.
Right.
So,